Right now, as you're watching this video, your brain is making thousands of invisible calculations. It's measuring symmetry, analyzing vocal patterns, detecting pheromones you can't consciously smell, and evaluating genetic compatibility with people you haven't even met yet. And here's the unsettling part. You have almost no control over any of it. That person you can't stop thinking about, the one who makes your heart race when they walk into a room, science can explain exactly why, and the explanation is far stranger than you ever imagined. Welcome to Behind the Mind. I'm about to reveal the hidden mechanisms that control who you're attracted to, and trust me, by the end of this video, you'll never look at attraction the same way again. Because what I'm about to show you operates entirely in the shadows of your consciousness, pulling strings you didn't even know existed. Let's dive into the hidden psychology of attraction. The 7-second window. You've heard that first impressions matter, but did you know that your brain makes irreversible judgments about someone in just 7 seconds? Not 7 minutes, 7 seconds. That's barely enough time to say hello. Researchers at Princeton University discovered that when we meet someone new, our brain instantly evaluates two fundamental questions. Can I trust this person, and should I respect this person? This happens in the amygdala, the ancient part of our brain that evolved to keep us alive in dangerous environments. But here's where it gets fascinating. These snap judgments aren't random. They're based on incredibly specific cues that most of us never consciously notice. The symmetry obsession. Your brain is obsessed with symmetry, and it's using it to judge potential partners without telling you. Studies have shown that people with more symmetrical faces are consistently rated as more attractive across all cultures, all ages, all time periods. Why? Because facial symmetry is an honest signal of genetic health. It's incredibly difficult to fake. When someone develops asymmetrically, it often indicates that they experienced stress, disease, or genetic mutations during development. Your subconscious brain reads this like a biological resume, screening for the healthiest possible genes to mix with your own. Researchers have even found that women can smell the difference. In one groundbreaking study, women were asked to smell t-shirts worn by different men and rate them. Without seeing the men, without knowing anything about them, women consistently preferred the scent of men with more symmetrical bodies. Their noses were detecting immune system compatibility at a molecular level. The pupil dilation secret. Here's something you can actually observe. When someone is attracted to you, their pupils dilate. It's completely involuntary. The autonomic nervous system takes over, and those black centers expand. But it works both ways. When you see someone with dilated pupils, you unconsciously find them more attractive. In the 1960s, Italian women would use drops of belladonna, which literally means beautiful woman, to artificially dilate their pupils, even though it could cause blindness. They understood something science would only prove decades later. Voice pitch and attraction. The sound of someone's voice triggers attraction responses you're probably not aware of. Men are typically attracted to women with higher-pitched voices because higher pitch correlates with higher estrogen levels in youth. Women, on the other hand, show attraction to men with deeper voices, which signal higher testosterone and physical dominance. But here's the twist. Women's voice preferences change throughout their menstrual cycle. During peak fertility, they prefer significantly deeper, more masculine voices. During other times, they prefer slightly softer voices. The woman you're talking to is literally attracted to different vocal qualities depending on what day of the month it is, and she has no idea this is happening. The 3-stage model of love. Anthropologist Helen Fisher revolutionized our understanding of attraction by identifying 3 distinct neural systems that govern love: lust, attraction, and attachment. Each runs on different brain chemistry, and they can operate independently or even in conflict with one another. Lust is driven by testosterone and estrogen. It's the raw, animalistic urge for sexual gratification. Attraction is powered by dopamine, norepinephrine, and serotonin, the same chemicals involved in addiction. And attachment runs on oxytocin and vasopressin, creating deep emotional bonds. Here's the problem. These systems don't always align. You can feel attached to one person, attracted to another, and lust for a third. Your brain isn't designed for monogamy. It's designed for genetic diversity and survival. The dopamine rush.
When you're attracted to someone new, your brain is essentially high on drugs. Dopamine floods your neural pathways, creating euphoria, focused attention, and obsessive thinking. Brain scans of people in early-stage attraction look remarkably similar to brain scans of cocaine addicts. This explains why new attraction feels so intense, why you can't stop thinking about them, why you obsessively check your phone for their messages. You're not weak-willed, you're neurochemically addicted. The dopamine hits hardest when the reward is unpredictable. This is why playing hard to get actually works on a neurological level. Every text from them becomes a potential dopamine jackpot, and your brain starts craving those random rewards like a gambler at a slot machine. The oxytocin bond. When attraction transitions to attachment, oxytocin takes over. This is the bonding chemical released during physical touch, orgasm, childbirth, and breastfeeding. It creates feelings of trust, contentment, and emotional connection. But oxytocin has a dark side. It can bond you to the wrong person just as effectively as the right one. If you're in a toxic relationship but maintain physical intimacy, oxytocin is chemically reinforcing that bond, even as your conscious mind knows you should leave. This is why relationship experts often advise people trying to leave bad relationships to implement no-contact rules. You're not just avoiding drama, you're breaking a chemical addiction. The adrenaline rush. Fear and excitement use the same physiological pathways. This is why dates involving adrenaline, roller coasters, horror movies, adventure sports, can increase attraction. Your brain misattributes the arousal from fear as attraction to the person you're with. There's a famous study where researchers had men cross either a scary suspension bridge or a stable bridge, then encounter an attractive female interviewer. The men who crossed the scary suspension bridge were far more likely to call the woman later, believing they were attracted to her. In reality, they were simply experiencing residual arousal from fear. This is called excitement transfer, and it's why danger dates work. Your racing heart, sweaty palms, and heightened awareness are reinterpreted by your brain as signs of attraction.
The MHC complex and genetic compatibility. Deep in your DNA is a set of genes called the major histocompatibility complex, or MHC. These genes regulate your immune system, and here's where it gets wild. You're naturally attracted to people whose MHC genes are different from yours. Why? Because children born from parents with dissimilar MHC genes have more robust immune systems. They can fight off a wider variety of diseases, and your body knows this through scent. The famous sweaty t-shirt study I mentioned earlier wasn't just about symmetry. Researchers found that women preferred the scent of men whose MHC genes were most different from their own. With one devastating exception, women on hormonal birth control showed the opposite preference. They were attracted to men with similar MHC genes. Think about the implications. Millions of women meet their partners while on birth control, then stop taking it when they want to have children, only to discover they're no longer attracted to their partner. The person they fell in love with suddenly smells wrong at a biological level. The mere exposure effect. One of the most powerful and underrated factors in attraction is simple proximity. The more you see someone, the more attractive they become. This is called the mere exposure effect, and it's remarkably powerful. Studies of college students show that people are more likely to form friendships and relationships with people who sit near them in class or live near them in dorms. Not because of shared interests or compatibility, but simply because of repeated exposure. This is why workplace romances are so common, why you might develop feelings for someone you initially found average, and why some arranged marriages develop genuine love over time. Your brain equates familiarity with safety, and safety with attraction. The contrast effect. Who you find attractive is partially determined by who you've seen recently. If you've just been looking at very attractive people, average people seem less attractive. If you've been looking at average people, someone moderately attractive seems more appealing. This is called the contrast effect, and it's why dating apps can be so damaging to relationships. When you're constantly swiping through images of highly attractive people, your partner suffers by comparison, even if objectively they're quite attractive. Reality TV dating shows exploit this ruthlessly. Contestants are surrounded by unusually attractive people in swimwear 24/7, making everyone's standards inflate dramatically. Childhood imprinting. Some of your attraction patterns were established before you could even speak.
Research suggests that people tend to be attracted to partners who resemble their opposite-sex parent, especially in terms of age, hair color, eye color, and ethnicity. This is called sexual imprinting, and it's deeply unconscious. If you have a good relationship with your opposite-sex parent, you'll likely seek out similar features. If you have a troubled relationship, you might either avoid those features entirely or be compulsively drawn to them in an attempt to fix the original relationship through a proxy. Even more strange, people tend to choose partners who resemble themselves. Studies have shown that spouses tend to have similar facial features, and long-term couples actually grow to look alike over decades as they mirror each other's expressions and develop similar wrinkle patterns. The waist-to-hip ratio. Men across virtually every culture show a consistent preference for women with a waist-to-hip ratio of around 0.7. This means the waist is 70% the circumference of the hips. This preference shows up in ancient art, modern fashion, and unconscious attraction studies. Why this specific ratio? Because it correlates with fertility and health. Women with this ratio have optimal levels of estrogen, are more likely to conceive, have healthier pregnancies, and produce children with higher cognitive development. Your male ancestors who were attracted to this ratio had more successful offspring, so the preference became hardwired. Interestingly, the preference for overall body size varies by culture and resource availability, but the waist-to-hip ratio preference remains constant from hunter-gatherer societies to modern metropolises. Height and status signals. Women consistently prefer taller men, and men consistently prefer shorter women. In studies of online dating, height is one of the strongest predictors of initial attraction. For men, each additional inch of height correlates with higher income, more leadership positions, and greater reported attractiveness. For women, the preference is specifically for men taller than themselves, with the ideal gap being around 6 inches. This isn't shallow, it's evolutionary psychology. Height correlates with health, nutrition during development, and in our ancestral past, physical dominance and protection ability. Shorter men had to compensate with other traits, intelligence, humor, resources, which is why personality matters more for shorter men in attraction studies. The red dress effect. Color influences attraction in ways most people never consider. Women wearing red are consistently rated as more attractive and sexually desirable by men. This holds across different cultures and contexts. The effect is so strong that waitresses who wear red receive larger tips from male customers, and women in online dating profiles get more messages when wearing red. Why? Because red signals fertility and sexual receptivity in many primate species. Female primates display red coloring when they're ovulating. Our brains still carry this ancient association, even though we've lost the conscious connection. Facial features and hormones. Testosterone shapes male faces, stronger jaws, more prominent brows, wider faces. Estrogen shapes female faces, fuller lips, larger eyes, smaller chins, higher cheekbones. Women's preferences for masculine faces fluctuate with their cycle. During ovulation, when pregnancy risk is highest, women prefer more masculine faces, the testosterone markers that signal genetic fitness. During other times, they prefer softer, more feminine faces that signal kindness and paternal investment. This creates a fascinating dilemma. The men who trigger the strongest biological attraction might not be the best long-term partners, while the men who would be excellent fathers might not trigger that primal spark. Social proof and mate choice copying. Humans are social learners, and this extends to attraction. We find people more attractive when we see that others find them attractive. This is called mate choice copying, and it's especially strong in women. In studies, women rate men as more attractive after seeing them with beautiful women, or learning that other women are interested in them. This is why photos with groups of friends, especially attractive friends, perform better in dating profiles. The effect works both ways. If you see someone being rejected or ignored, they become less attractive to you even if nothing about them has actually changed. The similarity attraction effect. Despite the saying that opposites attract, research overwhelmingly shows that similarity drives attraction. We're attracted to people who share our values, interests, background, education level, and even speech patterns. The more similar someone is to us, the more we like them.
This is called the similarity attraction effect, and it's a remarkably powerful finding in all of social psychology. Why? Similarity provides validation. When someone shares our views, it confirms that we're right, which feels good. Similarity also predicts compatibility and reduces conflict. And on a deeper level, similarity satisfies our fundamental need to be understood. The reciprocity principle. One of the strongest predictors of attraction is simply knowing that someone is attracted to you. We like people who like us. This is the reciprocity principle. In one study, researchers told participants that certain people in a group found them attractive. Those participants then rated those specific people as more attractive, even though the information was randomly assigned and completely false. This creates a positive feedback loop. When you show interest in someone, they become more interested in you, which makes you more interested in them, and so on. This is why confidence and direct expression of interest can be so effective. It triggers reciprocity. The scarcity effect. Things are more valuable when they're rare, and this applies to people too. When someone seems scarce, whether because they're busy, have many options, or are hard to pin down, they become more attractive. This is why the dating advice to be less available actually has psychological merit. Scarcity increases perceived value. When someone is always available, always texting back immediately, always free to meet, their perceived value decreases. But there's a balance. Too much scarcity reads as disinterest, which triggers rejection and withdrawal. The sweet spot is being genuinely busy and having a full life, which creates natural scarcity without game playing. The halo effect. Attractive people benefit from what psychologists call the halo effect. We unconsciously assume that good-looking people are also more intelligent, more competent, kinder, more trustworthy, and more successful. This isn't true, of course, but the bias is so strong that it affects everything from criminal sentencing, attractive defendants receive lighter sentences, to job interviews. Attractive candidates are more likely to be hired, to academic grading. Attractive students receive higher marks for identical work. In attraction, the halo effect works in both directions. If we find someone physically attractive, we assume they have a great personality. If we find their personality attractive, they start to look more physically attractive to us.
Attachment styles and relationship patterns. Your early childhood relationships, particularly with your primary caregivers, create an attachment style that profoundly influences who you're attracted to and how you behave in relationships. There are 4 main attachment styles: secure, anxious, avoidant, and fearful avoidant. Secure people had consistent, responsive caregivers and form healthy relationships. Anxious people had inconsistent caregivers and become clingy and worried about abandonment. Avoidant people had dismissive caregivers and fear intimacy. Fearful avoidant people had frightening caregivers and want connection but sabotage it. Here's the disturbing part. People tend to be attracted to partners who recreate their childhood attachment dynamics. Anxious people are drawn to avoidant partners who trigger their abandonment fears. Avoidant people are drawn to anxious partners who they can keep at arm's length. It's like we're trying to replay our childhood wounds, hoping for a different ending. The intermittent reinforcement trap. The most powerful way to create addiction is intermittent reinforcement, reward that comes unpredictably. Slot machines use this. Abusive relationships use this. When someone is sometimes warm and sometimes cold, sometimes attentive and sometimes distant, sometimes loving and sometimes cruel, it creates an addiction far stronger than consistent behavior would. Your brain releases more dopamine in response to unpredictable rewards than predictable ones. This is why toxic relationships can feel more intense, more passionate, more addictive than healthy ones. The uncertainty itself becomes the drug. People often mistake this intensity for love. They think the anxiety, the obsessive thoughts, the emotional roller coaster means they've found the one. In reality, they found someone who's triggering their brain's addiction pathways through inconsistency. Narcissists and initial attraction. Narcissists are often highly attractive in initial encounters. They're confident, charming, exciting, and attentive. They make you feel special, seen, understood. This is called love bombing, and it's devastatingly effective.
Research shows that narcissists are rated as more attractive than average in first impressions and short-term encounters. They dress better, groom more carefully, and have learned to project charisma. They're like psychological predators who've evolved perfect camouflage. The mask only slips once they've secured your attachment. Then the devaluation begins, and by that point, your brain is already bonded through oxytocin, traumatized through intermittent reinforcement, and questioning your own reality through gaslighting. Understanding this pattern can literally save people from years of psychological abuse. The sunk cost fallacy in relationships. People stay in bad relationships partially because of the sunk cost fallacy. We feel that the time, energy, and emotion we've invested shouldn't go to waste, so we keep investing more, hoping it will eventually pay off. This is the same flawed logic that makes gamblers throw good money after bad. The past investment is gone regardless of what you do next. The only question that matters is, will future investment create positive returns? But our brains aren't wired for this rational calculation. We feel the pain of loss more acutely than the pleasure of gain. So we cling to failing relationships, hoping that just a little more effort, a little more time, a little more compromise will turn things around. The fantasy bond. Sometimes what we call love is actually a fantasy bond, an illusion of connection that defends against genuine intimacy. In a fantasy bond, you go through the motions of a relationship while avoiding real vulnerability, honest communication, and authentic emotional connection. People in fantasy bonds often stay together for years or decades, looking like a couple from the outside, but experiencing profound loneliness on the inside. They're attracted to the idea of the person or to the security of the arrangement, but not to the actual human being in front of them. Breaking a fantasy bond can feel like ending a real relationship, complete with grief and withdrawal, even though authentic intimacy was never present. The paradox of choice. Dating apps have given us access to more potential partners than any humans in history. You'd think this would lead to better matches and more satisfaction. It doesn't. Research shows that more choice leads to less satisfaction. This is the paradox of choice. When you have unlimited options, you're constantly wondering if someone better is just one more swipe away. You struggle to commit. You become more critical, more judgmental, more dissatisfied. Studies of online daters show that they apply increasingly harsh filters as they swipe, rejecting people for smaller and smaller flaws. Someone who would seem attractive in person gets rejected because their photo doesn't perfectly capture their best angle, or their bio has a minor typo, or they're 1 inch shorter than ideal. The abundance of choice has made us pickier without making us happier. The difference between online and offline attraction. Chemistry doesn't translate through screens. All those subtle cues, scent, energy, vocal tone, pheromones, the way someone moves, are completely absent in online interactions. This creates a bizarre situation where you can text someone for weeks, feel deeply connected, build up intense expectations, and then feel nothing when you finally meet. The person you were attracted to was partially a projection of your imagination. Conversely, some people who seem mediocre in photos are magnetic in person. The most attractive qualities, confidence, humor, presence, emotional intelligence, are nearly impossible to convey through a profile. This is why experts recommend moving from app to in-person meeting as quickly as possible. The longer you text without meeting, the more you're falling for an idealized fantasy rather than the actual person. The impact of pornography on attraction. Easy access to pornography is rewiring attraction in ways we're only beginning to understand. When your brain is exposed to supranormal stimuli, exaggerated versions of attractive features, it recalibrates its baseline. Studies show that men who view pornography regularly rate average women as less attractive than men who don't. Their attraction baseline has shifted upward in ways that real humans can't compete with. The dopamine hit from novel sexual images also conditions the brain to crave variety over depth, which can damage the ability to maintain long-term attraction to a single partner. This isn't a moral judgment, it's a neurological fact. The brain you bring to a relationship has been shaped by what you've consumed, and that affects who you're capable of being attracted to. Social media and comparison. Social media exposes you to highlight reels of other people's relationships, creating unrealistic expectations about what romance should look like. You see the vacation photos, the surprise gifts, the romantic gestures, but not the arguments, the compromises, the mundane Tuesday evenings. This constant comparison makes your own relationship seem less exciting, less romantic, less worthy. Research shows that heavier social media use correlates with lower relationship satisfaction. You're comparing your behind-the-scenes reality to everyone else's carefully curated performance, and your relationship always loses by comparison. The rise of strategic ambiguity. Modern dating culture has created what researchers call strategic ambiguity, deliberately keeping relationships undefined to maintain freedom while enjoying relationship benefits. Terms like situationship, talking, and hanging out allow people to be involved without being committed. This protects against rejection and vulnerability, but it also prevents genuine intimacy and clarity. The result is that many people spend months or years in undefined quasi-relationships, experiencing all the anxieties of uncertainty while missing out on both the freedom of being single and the security of being committed. This ambiguity is particularly cruel because it triggers constant anxiety. Your brain can't achieve closure. It's stuck in an exhausting state of uncertainty, always wondering where you stand.
Attraction versus compatibility. Here's something most people don't want to hear. Strong initial attraction and long-term compatibility are often inversely related. The person who makes your heart race might not be the person you can build a life with. Attraction responds to novelty, unpredictability, beauty, and status. Compatibility requires similarity, stability, shared values, and complementary life goals. The most intense attractions often involve some element of unavailability, challenge, or emotional distance. These create dopamine spikes. But relationships built on these foundations tend to be unstable and ultimately unsatisfying. Meanwhile, the person who might be your perfect life partner might not trigger that electric chemistry. They might seem boring initially because they're consistent, available, and stable. All the things that create poor dopamine responses, but excellent relationships. The two systems of attraction. Psychologists increasingly believe we have two different attraction systems that evolved for different purposes. One is designed for short-term mating, focused on physical attractiveness, novelty, and genetic fitness markers. The other is designed for long-term bonding, focused on kindness, stability, resource provision, and parental investment potential. The problem is these systems want different things. Your short-term attraction system wants the genetically gifted but potentially unreliable partner. Your long-term system wants the dependable, but perhaps less exciting partner. Most people don't understand they're operating two different programs, so they pursue one type while complaining that all the good ones are taken, not recognizing that what's good depends on which system you're consulting. Why attraction fades. That intense new relationship energy never lasts. It can't. Your brain literally cannot maintain those dopamine levels indefinitely. Studies show that passionate romantic love typically lasts 12 to 18 months before transitioning into companionate love. This isn't failure, it's biology. The intense attraction phase is designed to bond you to a partner and get you through the vulnerable early stages of a relationship or pregnancy. Once that's accomplished, the brain shifts to the attachment system, which is calmer and more stable. Many people interpret this natural transition as falling out of love. They think something is wrong. They start seeking that dopamine rush elsewhere. This is why so many relationships fail at the 1 to 2 year mark. People are chasing a feeling that, by design, is temporary. Understanding this can save relationships. Companionate love isn't less valuable than passionate love, it's just different. It's the difference between fireworks and a warm hearth. Both have their place. The role of choice and commitment. Here's a radical thought. Attraction isn't just something that happens to you, it's also something you choose to cultivate. Yes, there are biological factors outside your control. Yes, chemistry matters. But long-term attraction in successful relationships is partially a choice. It's choosing to notice and appreciate your partner.
It's choosing to maintain mystery and autonomy rather than complete fusion. It's choosing behaviors that keep dopamine alive: novelty, adventure, surprises, continued growth. The happiest long-term couples aren't the ones with the strongest initial chemistry. They're the ones who understand that attraction requires maintenance, like any other aspect of relationship health. They schedule date nights to create novelty. They maintain separate interests to preserve mystery. They continue developing as individuals to avoid becoming boring to each other. They treat attraction not as a fixed trait, but as a garden that requires tending. Beyond physical attraction. As people mature, the factors driving attraction tend to shift. Physical appearance never becomes irrelevant, but it becomes less dominant. Character, emotional intelligence, shared values, and life compatibility become more important. This isn't settling, it's wisdom. It's recognizing that the person you're attracted to at 25 might not be the person you want to be with at 45, 65, or 85. Physical beauty fades for everyone. Health declines, bodies change. If attraction is based solely on physical factors, the relationship has an expiration date built in. The most enduring attractions are multi-layered. They include physical chemistry, yes, but also intellectual stimulation, emotional connection, shared humor, admiration of character, and alignment of values. These types of attraction deepen over time rather than fading. They survive the changes that age, illness, and life circumstances inevitably bring. Recognizing healthy attraction. Now that you understand the hidden psychology of attraction, how do you distinguish healthy attraction from the various traps and illusions? Healthy attraction includes some anxiety, but not constant anxiety. There's excitement when you see them, but not obsessive preoccupation when you're apart. There's physical chemistry, but also genuine enjoyment of their company when sex isn't involved. Healthy attraction makes you feel more like yourself, not less. It enhances your life rather than consuming it. It coexists with other important relationships and responsibilities, rather than demanding you abandon everything else. If your attraction involves constant drama, extreme emotional swings, neglect of other life areas, or fundamental values conflicts, you're likely in the grip of one of the dysfunctional patterns we've discussed. Increasing your attractiveness. Understanding the psychology of attraction also allows you to increase your own attractiveness, both for finding partners and maintaining existing relationships. Physical appearance matters, but it's more controllable than most people think. Fitness, grooming, clothing, and posture all significantly impact how attractive others find you. These are all within your control. Beyond physical factors, confidence is attractive because it signals status and capability. Humor is attractive because it signals intelligence and emotional regulation. Kindness is attractive because it signals long-term partnership potential. Passion and purpose are attractive because they make you interesting, and because people are drawn to those who are drawn to something beyond themselves. The most attractive people aren't necessarily the most physically beautiful. They're the ones who are comfortable in their own skin, engaged with life, and genuinely interested in others. Creating lasting attraction. For those in relationships, understanding attraction psychology helps maintain the spark over decades. Maintain some independence and mystery. Couples who do everything together often find attraction fading. Your partner needs to feel like they're still discovering you, which requires you to continue growing and changing. Create novel experiences together. Dopamine responds to novelty, so routine kills attraction. Regular new adventures, even small ones, keep the chemistry alive. Maintain physical affection, especially non-sexual touch. This keeps oxytocin levels high, which maintains the bond even when passionate love has transitioned to companionate love. Continue investing in your own attractiveness. Many people stop trying once they're in a committed relationship. This signals to your partner that you no longer care about attracting them, which ironically makes you less attractive. The importance of self-awareness. Perhaps the most valuable application of understanding attraction psychology is developing self-awareness about your own patterns. Are you repeatedly attracted to emotionally unavailable people? That's worth examining. Are you attracted to partners who resemble a difficult parent? That's probably an attachment issue worth addressing.
Do you lose attraction once someone becomes available? You might have an avoidant attachment style. These patterns aren't character flaws, they're psychological programming, often from childhood. But recognizing them is the first step to changing them. Without awareness, you're destined to repeat the same patterns indefinitely, wondering why all your relationships follow the same script. Therapy, particularly attachment-focused therapy, can help reprogram these patterns. So can conscious choice, deliberately dating against type, choosing the stable partner over the exciting one, or vice versa, depending on what your destructive pattern has been. The big picture. So where does all this leave us? We've journeyed deep into the hidden machinery of attraction, uncovered the biological drives, psychological patterns, and social influences that control who we're drawn to. The picture that emerges is both liberating and unsettling. Liberating because so much of what we blame ourselves for, failed relationships, bad choices, unrequited feelings, all of it turns out to be biology and psychology operating beneath conscious awareness. Unsettling because we have less control than we'd like to believe. You're attracted to symmetrical faces because of immune system compatibility. Your pupils dilate involuntarily. Your mate preferences shift with your menstrual cycle. You fall for narcissists because they've learned to hack your attraction circuitry. You stay in bad relationships because of sunk costs and oxytocin addiction. You compare your partner to idealized images on social media and find them lacking. None of this makes you weak or foolish. It makes you human. The path forward. But here's the empowering truth. Understanding these mechanisms gives you power over them. You can't eliminate biological drives, but you can recognize when they're leading you astray. You can't feel attraction on command, but you can cultivate it in promising relationships. You can't control who triggers your chemistry, but you can choose whether to pursue that person. Attraction is neither purely biological nor purely choice. It's an interaction between ancient drives and conscious decisions, between what your body wants and what your values dictate, between chemistry and compatibility. The wisest approach is probably this: respect the biology, but don't be enslaved by it.
Let attraction be one factor in relationship decisions, but not the only factor. Build relationships on multiple types of attraction: physical, emotional, intellectual, values-based, so that when one inevitably wanes, others remain strong. And perhaps most importantly, develop enough self-awareness to recognize your own patterns. Know what you're drawn to and why. Understand which attractions lead to growth and which to repetition of old wounds. Learn the difference between intensity and intimacy, between chemistry and compatibility, between passion and partnership. Final thoughts. The hidden psychology of attraction is complex, multifaceted, and sometimes contradictory. It's shaped by evolution, childhood experiences, hormones, culture, personal history, and pure chance. It operates largely outside conscious awareness, yet profoundly shapes the trajectory of our lives. Every relationship you've ever had, every heartbreak you've experienced, every person you couldn't stop thinking about, all of it was influenced by forces you probably didn't understand at the time. But now you do. You've seen behind the curtain. You understand the puppet strings, and that knowledge, uncomfortable as it sometimes is power. Use it wisely. Use it to make better choices, build healthier relationships, and understand yourself more deeply. Use it to have compassion for others caught in the same biological and psychological currents that affect us all. Because at the end of the day, we're all just humans trying to navigate the impossible complexity of connection, using brains designed for an ancient world while living in a modern one, searching for love in a universe that runs on indifferent chemistry. And somehow, despite everything working against us, we still manage to find it. Thanks for watching Behind the Mind. If this video helped you understand yourself or your relationships better, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into human psychology. Leave a comment telling me which part of attraction psychology surprised you most. I read every single one.